in the womb at 26 weeks, which was only 5 weeks after her diagnosis. It was the longest 5 weeks of my life though. And she was born in the maternity hospital, the maternity wing of the hospital in Waterford. And I got to bring her home for a night, and I got to have a funeral service. Her family got to meet her, my family, my parents and my brother, my kids, they got to meet their sister. So it probably sounds like there really wouldn't have made a difference had I travelled. But those 5 weeks between diagnosis, the day we got the phone call, we were standing in the kitchen, and we decided we were going to paint the kitchen for the new baby. So myself and my husband were painting the kitchen, the phone rang, we answered, and the fabulous midwife at Hollis Street said to me, "I'm very sorry, it's bad news, and your baby's going to die." And that moment was just, I can't describe it, the world fell apart. It was just it. It hasn't ever come back together right again since then, but I'm getting there. But from then, once I realised I was going to have to continue the pregnancy, I was going to have to carry on in Ireland, I couldn't face the thought of leaving my kids. I just couldn't leave them here, and I hadn't the money. I would have had to borrow it. I couldn't do it. My little fella was only 18 months at the time. He'd never spent a night away from me. But as the pregnancy progressed, I could feel her getting weaker. I could feel the movements going from kicks to movements to flutters, getting further and further apart. I was timing them, timing how long has it been since I felt a movement. 6 hours, 10 hours, 14 hours. 2 nights I sat up in bed, convinced that she had died. And I went through all the emotions that I felt. My child had died. In my head, she was gone. I had the grief, I had the mourning, I had all those feelings. And then I felt a tiny flutter 10 hours later and 14 hours later. So in essence, I mourned her death twice before I actually experienced it. And in that time, I couldn't go out. I couldn't face the school run, for example. The other mums at the gates, "When are you due? Giles, you'll have a busy Christmas this year. Are you mad? They're so close together." And all the other excited questions. I couldn't. If somebody said that to me, I'd just stand and bawl in front of them. And the kids are distressed, and you don't know what to do. I was trying to get out and go to the supermarket. A woman would walk past with her baby, and I'd literally abandon the trolley and just leave. Just walk out the door. I couldn't face it. I couldn't participate in any of my normal life. I called in sick to work, and I actually have never been back to work. I never went back to that job again. I couldn't even drive up the road there because the other 2 women on my team that were pregnant were due around the same time as me. I still have never seen them in person again. And the idea that this was looming ahead of me, I knew I was going to have a stillbirth. I knew she was dying. And I was 24 weeks pregnant, and she still wasn't kicking. I knew that there was no way she was going to survive very long. I knew she was going to die, and I was going to have to give birth to a dead baby. And it was ahead of me, but I didn't know when. It was going to happen. The worst thing in my life was in my future, but there's no way for me to prepare for it. There's no way for me to plan for it, and I had no idea when it was going to happen. The nightmares that I had were horrendous. Every single night I dreamed about what that birth was going to be like. The fear, the pain, what's going to get me through labour knowing that I don't have a baby at the end of it. What gets you through labour? It'll all be worth it in the end. That's it, isn't it? But that's what your midwives say to you. Nobody was going to be able to say that to me. And there was going to be no cry. I wasn't going to have a baby to bring home. I wasn't going to be able to feed her. She was never going to have a bath. Never going to change her nappy. And that was all ahead of me, and I couldn't bear the thought that that was going to happen, but I wasn't able to do anything about it. I wasn't able to be her mum. And that time period, it felt like I didn't matter. It felt like that didn't count. Like all the things that I hold dear, all the things that are important to me in my life, things like minding my kids, being a good mum, having a good relationship with my husband, being a good friend, being a good daughter, being an all right sister. Like, those things are important to me. My job was important to me. And when I couldn't perform any of those functions, the things that were important to me, it didn't matter. No, there was a thing that could have been done to help me. There was something, like I wasn't asking for a procedure to be invented. I was asking for something that takes place all around the world, that people recognise as real medical care. And I was denied it. I was told I didn't deserve it. I wasn't good enough for it. And the fact that I had to drop out of society, that I couldn't function, that I wasn't able to be me anymore, didn't matter, just as long as I was alive. And from that experience, I ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder. I've been on medication ever since. I take a tablet every day to stop myself going a bit off the deep end. And I think had I been given the control, had somebody said, actually, you know what, it does matter that you feel like this. It does matter. It matters enough for us to do something about it. It would have made all the difference. All the difference.
Thank you.